what we must understand, you're speaking to a legislator here, and let's talk about the law, about constitutionalism. The minister is empowered in terms of the act to appoint board members. Okay, when they appoint, we never ask them why they've appointed.
True.
We must understand this. But when they fire, we want to know why they're fired.
Because there's regulations that regulate that.
But there is nothing which says that she must explain to anybody, and she must explain to the public. There's nothing like that from a constitutional point of view. Let us understand that. When the minister appoints ministers, when the president appoints ministers, some of them we did not like them. He did not have to explain to anybody why he appointed this one and so forth. When he fires them, those are the powers that he has. And where is he in violation of the powers? No way. So let's understand the role of the minister in this. The whole appointment of board members on parastatals in Zimbabwe from an oversight point of view as a legislator is done by the minister. He or she is empowered to appoint anybody. No wonder why as parliament we're trying to move a motion to say no, ministers must not be empowered to appoint. It must come through parliament like it's done in South Africa. But that's a recommendation which requires a constitutional amendment. So before that constitutional amendment, let's not try and think that the minister acted out of line. If the minister acted out of line, then you must say where she acted out of line, because her letter was very clear. The minister can dissolve the whole board if she wants. Okay, she can dissolve the whole board and put a new board and so forth. These are some of the things that we must understand from a constitutional point of view. But we don't want to now separate issues and say, no, it is out of Temba Mliswa's tweet. Listen, there is so much now. If social media is also leading to the right decisions being done, let it be so. That is a means of communication.
So we come back to the issue, Honorable Mliswa, which is where my question comes, to say, let's say you're right, that the minister is not required to explain anything to anyone. She chose to explain her actions by saying Mr. Vela was not ordinarily resident in Zimbabwe, which turns out to not be true. So that's where people then find it problematic to say, why did she give an explanation that was untrue if she wasn't required to give an explanation in the first place?
No, but she's right. Robin Vela has got a British passport.
But the issue is not residency.
But you've got to understand this. This is a national institution, and I'm a member of parliament. Would I like the national institution to be led by somebody with a British passport and American passport? No. The American institutions are led by Americans only. We must understand that. It comes from a nationalistic point of view, from a patriotic point of view. We must understand that.
I understood, but again, the issue is different. Him holding a British passport and being resident in Zimbabwe are two very different things. I could be a holder of an American passport and have never been to America for the last 30 years. I would still be considered ordinarily resident in this country. So again, the statement in itself does not hold truth.
But you see, but I think where you're missing it, it's like I'm now the Minister of the Things spokesperson. I think it's only proper that the minister is asked why she made the decision. What I know is that there's been evidence that is a hold of a British passport. As such, people were not comfortable with the national asset being given to a British holder of a passport. And I think it makes sense because the money is coming from Zimbabweans. And why do we want a British to run our assets? That's a nationalistic and patriotic point of view, which I think filters through anybody. Because I've never known of a Zimbabwean who controls CIA in Zimbabwe because they've a Zimbabwean passport. I think these are strategic institutions for the country. From a security point of view, they need to be protected, and we need people who are Zimbabweans to preside over this. So to me, whether the minister did it or not, it is something from a legislative point of view that I'll still support, that I want to see a Zimbabwean being an editor of a state-owned entity, not a British, because the interests of Zimbabwe are only safe under a Zimbabwean.
Right. Again, I do appreciate what you say. It is still beside the point of the statement made by the minister, but you do make a fair statement to say you're not the minister and she should speak on her own behalf. We have been desperately trying to get a hold of her for the last week and we're still unable to contact her. Minister Kagonye, if you're listening, we would love to have you on our show because there's some questions that really need answering. But I've got someone on the line. Good morning. Who am I speaking to and where are you listening from?
Good morning. You're speaking
to who, sorry?
Kuda.
Kuda, right. Yeah. What's your contribution, Kuda? What's your question for Mr. Mliswa, for Honorable Mliswa, rather?
Okay. The good honorable, I understand the part of oversight. But the Panama absolute statements are the minister was answerable to anyone. She can do whatever she wants. And yet she's running a public institution. For me, I find that to be not so true, even though akanzi ndiye anoapoinda. But the fact yekuti ndiye anoapoinda zvakafanana kuti pakaappoinda president maminister pakaitwa outcry umwe minister akabvisa. Zvoreva kuti as much as the president has the executive powers dzekuappoinda, but vanhu vakataura because ndo varidzi kapekupedzisira ndo varidzi ava kana vakataura anototeerera. That's my point number one. Point number two, then British passport and American passport, then we are not in a global world, because kana tiri mu globalization zvinhu hazvisi hatingamiri tichiti ningi ane passport yakati and yet ari muZimbabwe ipapo handimutagiri yangu. But ndinofunga kuti chimwe chinhu chakakura chiri kuitika mumainstitution edu ndeyekuti vanhu vakapiwa simba rekuita oversight vanonzi parliament havanga vasina simba racho. One, vanga vasina know-how yekuti vari kutomboitei mumainstitution one. That's why honorable pawakaita inonzi parliamentary something yavakaita vakanga variwo vega vaibvunza yaimeka sense. Vamwe vanhu vese vangangogara vachiseka nekuti vanga vasingatozivi kuti chiri kuitika chii. Saka problem itori chilaini chaicho chiri kuenda chekuti parliament yacho haisi kukwanisa kupeya oversight nekuti haikuziva zviri kufanira kuti oversight yacho at the end of the day. But pane zvinhu zvakawanda zvokutaurwa zvekuti kuri kuita chakati nechakati nechakati. Then the last thing chiri important chandauta ndeche nyaya yeaccess information. Taapo izvino izvimanje chekuti WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook is now the source of information, be it the government likes it or not, or public institutions like it or not. Yato's source of information, and now there is lots of access to information. Yet the government itself cannot hide that information from the people. Saka iyoyo manje haisi gossip. Tikutoti pakatozoitika substantive information maplatform iwayo inofanira kuti pafollow up kwete ngomira herald
All right then. Thank you so much for that contribution, Kuda. Honorable, do you have a response for that?
I think it brings up a lot of pertinent issues, but I also challenge the electorate. You are the ones who choose the members of parliament. So I hope in this election, maisa masivi zenyu kumapati enyu kutimupinde ma primary, because our leadership is reflective on who we vote for. So to me, I've always said that the capacity of parliament depends on the electorate voting for the right people. Disappointingly, my political parties hawana kuseta criteria ye education kudiwa kuti vanhu vaite macandidates. Ipapo ndipo patinoraisika. So where you see that it's more the political expedience that they're after, not the quality of leadership. And I think, yes, the aspect of social media and is important. It has become a source of information, but what's critical is to then substantiate. So you cannot ignore it anymore, because print media and so forth used to also become corrupt. Kuna stories anobatwa nekuti vanhu vapiwa mari kuti kumedia kune corruption. Saka social media haina izvozvo, inotobuditsa chete. And I think vamwe vanenge vachitaura pa social media vanhu vanenge vabhadhara. So there are two sides, but the truth must be said, and I think there must be evidence.
All right, and we are always on the side of truth. You're still listening in to Zimbabwe's first and only commercial talk radio station, Capi Talk 100.4 FM. My name is Chademana. I'm going to be your host between now and 10 o'clock, where we talk on business, sports, current affairs, and everything else in between. And we are continuing a heated conversation that began just before we went to the break. And I'm speaking to Honorable Temba Mliswa, and we're talking about what we're now terming the NASA saga. It seems Robin Vela was fired, and according to the minister, he was relieved of his duties simply because he is not ordinarily resident in Zimbabwe. Now, it seems there are other issues that may have factored into the relieving of the duties for Mr. Vela, but we will be interrogating that a little bit more with one of the most vocal, members of parliament who are pro the relieving of Mr. Vela's duties. But I've got someone joining me on the line. Good morning. Who am I speaking to and where are you listening from?
Good morning, talent. It's Chinembira calling from the CBD.
Right, Chinembira, I'm going to ask you to be as brief as you can. What is your question?
All right. I've been following this NASA issue for some time now, and it looks like Vela was a guy, he knew what he was doing, but I think he was overdoing it. And the NEMA issues, and actually for the past year or so, I don't know, maybe I wanted Mr. Mliswa to comment on. But the issue in NASA system, the SAP, NASA, yaga system for 20 million, and after about 2 years, the system has and the 20 million went down the drain. There's an issue here. The guy by the name, I think he was one of their former directors, Mtiswa something. that guy, I think NASA property was attached for about $600,000 because they had failed to follow very simple labor practices. My procedures are now follow. NASA retrenched the 15 managers, and without following any due procedures, Bakapesra went out court and they lost the case. NASA retrenched employees, but we are overstaffed. But right now I am told they are hiring several managers. So I think Vela, but on the ground, I think Munari, he was not walking his talk. That's my contribution, talent.
All right, then. Thank you so much for that. Honorable response.
Thank you.
Yeah, you seem to have read from my charge sheet, which I'm presenting to the president. Those are some of the allegations which are there clearly, firing people so that he puts his own people. And you have a situation where you've got that subsystem. It cost them 20 million, but he is now wanting to terminate it because allegedly he wants to bring his own company to be able to now run that system. And then they accuse these people from that system of not having done their work. So what was the point of paying them 20 million? And then 2 years along the line you then say, no, we want a new system. And yet he did not terminate it on time. So these are some of the irregularities, the shoddy deals which have been happening, which have prejudiced NASA money. And you've also got a situation where he runs a paro structure, where if you don't agree with what he wants, he then brings in new people, fires this. That's out of corporate governance. NASA is seized with a huge legal bill in terms of the labor issues that they must pay. But the problem, you must understand, it's not his money. This is people's money, and this is where we come in as members of parliament, that why are we abusing people's monies?
Right. So I like that you talk about the people's money, because it was one of the myriad of issues you brought up in your open statement. And you spoke about how they were mismanaging their investments, etc., etc. And some of the deals you brought up were from the pre-Vela era. And a lot of people who believed he was the best manager for NASA or the best chairperson for NASA under the circumstances have looked at what he's managed to achieve since he became the chairperson. One of those was actually raise. You're talking about $60 pensions under Robin Vela's chairmanship. They actually proposed to Parliament that the pensions be raised to $100, and Parliament was the one that actually reduced it down to $80, but still it was an increment in the pensions being paid out to people. So people are looking at his deliverables and saying the man is delivering. Why are we choosing to fire him at this particular moment? So how do you reconcile?
I think to me, like the previous speaker said, he's good at talking. On the ground is totally different. The NBS, the housing bank, that was a creation of them. He fired Chitando because he did not get along with Chitando. What I want you to understand about NASA is that NASA is invested in many institutions, CBZ included, RTGS included. He went and fired all the people there who were deployed by NASA as a shareholder, and brought in his own people. So to me, we all talk about how well he did. Listen, because you're in a class of people who are average and you do well, that does not mean you've done well. We must understand that there's got to be a forensic audit done, and I think let us allow that forensic audit to be done. And we've got one of the best auditor generals in this country, Madam Chiri, who does a sterling job of that. So he cannot put his own statement on social media and say I did well and so forth. No, we are more intelligent than that. Let the people say how well he did, but we can also tell him of some of the transactions he entered into. Met Bank, for example, it's well known. We're given 100 million treasury bills. It's being rolled over every day. Why has Met Bank not paid the 100 million back? Because if that 100 million comes back to NASA, then NASA is able to do a lot more. No one talks about that because people will write what you want them to hear. But we are smarter than that. We have all this information. The aspect of Zanet investing into Telecel. Why would government want to go and take over a shareholding which there's a first right of refusal to the current shareholder, who was Makamba? So
if I can understand, when did government and NASA buy into Telecel? Was this not done before Robin Vela was chairperson?
No, it was done when he was there. In fact, to me, the allegations are that they were forced by the former First Lady, This is why I'm saying how many other things were done forced by the former First Lady when she was not an executive at all, and people were taking instructions from her. Apparently that shareholding was being warehoused for her. So all these investigations are coming through, because we've got to understand, when people are in office and when they leave office, people start talking. Zimbabweans watch you quietly,
right.
But when you leave office, they speak the same way they did with the former president. Would you think they would come out marching like that and saying what they did?
And yet at the same time, Mr. Mliswa, Honorable Mliswa, you're the same person who came to Capi Talk and said, listen, this is a new administration. Yes, Patrick Chinamasa made bad decisions as the Minister of Finance under the old administration, but it was under the directive of the old president. Can we not give the same grace that we gave to the current ministers who we recycled from the old regime to the same executives who were also under the same pressure that your party was under, according to your statements?
Listen, that is wrong when they're coming from a corporate governance point of view. Certainly you must follow corporate governance, and there were criminals hiding behind the president, because that's what we found out. Because in our row of oversight, some of them have said that. We said, can you show us a memo which says that you're given this directive by the minister? I want you to understand that, because you have a certain office,
right?
Okay, you can no longer, you can't always say my editor said this. There's going to be a time where you're asked, can you show us the communication from your editor so that you cover yourself?
Right.
Everybody must be able to cover themselves and not to just name drop and blame everything when you are all. The president was surrounded by criminals, like the ZNA spokesman then said, General Moyo, who's now Minister of Foreign Affairs, and that's who they were targeting. So to me, a lot is being blamed on one man. And if you think about it seriously, can we blame everything? Chano mukanetsana mumba ndiwa mgabe. Ndipo pangatasvikaka uku vanhu vanoita utsotsi hwavo voramba vachita utsotsi vachiwanda behind that.
Okay, but I need to understand something. The first thing you said was, well, there's a corporate governance structure. Are we saying that we hold our corporate leaders to a higher standard than we do our public officials?
I totally agree with you, because we think that they're coming in, because we bring in people from the private sector to come and run parastatals. Are you with me? And we hold them so highly, yet they sit on so many boards. Chao kufamba wachitala andogara pa body, but nema board fees. But chi chavari kuita. Look at the institutions of this country. They're dysfunctional. Yet these are people with great CVs, chartered accountant, lawyer, businessman. So show us the difference you're making to this institution. Yet they're totally dysfunctional. They have been a waste of time and money for our people. They've allowed this country not to have solid institutions, because it's all a status thing. Ndogara pa body akati, ndogara pa body. Kasumuri kuita cheaper body papo to make sure there is corporate governance. Hapana.
Yeah, okay, you know what, I have some questions to follow up with that, but as always, if you're just joining us, I'm speaking to Honorable Temba Mliswa. We're talking about the NSSA saga. My name is Chademana. We're also live streaming on our Capi Talk FM page, that's on Facebook, and you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, as well as we keep this conversation going. Now, I've got someone on the line. Good morning. What is your question for Honorable Temba Mliswa, and what is your name?
Ndambofona.
Unonzani?
Kuda.
All right, Kuda. Ukurumidze kutaura. Taura tinzu.
Okay. Inini kuti honorable. Chii chiri kuitika munenyaya yemaparasita, nokuti maparasita haisowani parasita uyu. Oversight iri kuitika apa, iri kuitika here kumwe. Tine maparasita akawandisa akagwadama. Pambotaurwa nyaya yeZimbabwe. yeZimbabwe izvinezvi haitotrafiki, zvitori nanokwira bhazi panokwira yeZimbabwe. Saka what oversight is there? Yezvinezvi takuenda kuma-election. If it's not important kuti ma-institution akaita separliament ange aine vanhu vakaenda kuchikoro, with all due respect, but inofunga kuti vanhu ngavange vakatendei kuchikoro mbitana kuti tikwanise kuva nema-institutions acho asimbe, nekuti ma-politicians anoabuse ma-institution anenge asina kusimba. Institution isina kusimba, they are not accountable to anyone at the end of the day.
Good question, Kuda. Thank you so much for calling. Honorable, I'm going to ask you to make a very quick answer to that.
I totally agree with you. That's the reason why, as Chairman of Mines and Energy, we have asked these institutions to come before us in our role of oversight. I cannot talk about other portfolio committees, which I don't chair. I can talk about mine, which you know is doing a good job with all committee members in having oversight. And it is true. These parastatals are dysfunctional. I totally agree with you. And what is needed is to change them. But when a minister makes a decision to fire somebody, now we're saying, why did the minister fire the person? NASA is important because it is the biggest institution that controls money in the country. And we are watching where the money is going.
And it's yet it's one of the few parastatals that are actually profitable at the moment.
No, in fact, no, that's not true. This is what I'm saying to you at the end of the day. These are figures that you've been given. Allow the audit. Ask them how much money they've invested. Capital Bank is one of the banks that they put money into, and it never kicked them out. They've put money into Red Bank, 100 million, it has not come out. So to me, let's not talk about what we know, which he writes about. I've talked to you about 2 banks which have sunk after them putting in money. Was it a good decision? And whose money is it? It is the pensioners' money, and we are watching all this. So don't tell us about the little things you've done and now not expose 100 million Yemet Bank. Is there a need for NASA to put 30 million into Telecel when there's net one? These are the investments that we're asking. But all these investments are done in a pani corruption, panika percentage, kanenge kachijiwa nevani iwava. Wazo kudza tichikuita musha. Nyika ina kupusa vanhu ngavaziye mabasa ese avanoita kune vanhu vanenge vakanyarara vanonyora vanotipawo information kuti honorable ndimi munotaura too much kuparliament ona izvi zviri kuitika. Saka indotadza kumirira vanhu mozoti Temba Mliswa apindire chi. Mine is to represent people of this country to ensure that there's corporate governance and that their interests are taken care of. Chero mwana mdika akaya kwandira arowa ndinotoenda kumapurisa kunomumirira nekuti ndiro basa rangu.
It's true, and apana mboti muri kuzvitaurire honorable tangovunza kuti titsanangurirei. But as always, we have questions coming in on our WhatsApp platform. There are too many to count, but I'm going to start with this one that actually came in on our Twitter handle. This is from Malcolm in Highlands, and it says, what is your opinion on the fact that government ministers, when they're changed, they tend to change board of directors?
It's a good point, and that tactic is done because government is an institution. Why do you come in and change board of directors? It's because they want to steal. They are corrupt. They want to put people they can steal with, and you must understand this. My family was Minister of NASA. She brought in Robin Vela, and Robin Vela still reported to her the board is there. The board was corrupt because she allowed a lot of things to happen. And the reason why there's so much defense on my board members is because Robin Vela zvakawanda zvinofumuka nekuti kune vakuru futi varimo munoona kuti maboard members ava vanoita basa rekupinda maofisi vakuru vachitorwa mapictures chero na vice president chero na vamunangagwa zvonzi handina president onei handibatiki mazuva ekutorwa picture hapana zvainoreva picture hapana zvainoreva nekuba kwauri kuita isusu chero katorwa picture na president uchasungwa chete kana mhosva iripo saka zvekutorwa mapicture pasocial media muchiposta muchifunga kuti tofana kutya those days are gone. No, what I'm trying to say to you, there is a tendency in this country that when people are seen taking pictures with leaders, it seems that the leaders are supporting what they're doing. They now use those pictures to say, I was with the president and the president supports me. So what I'm just trying to say, those days are gone. What is important is for us to be able to run this country properly, and the problem is that the old dispensation of the former president suffered as a result of people being quiet. Let us allow people to talk. Let us allow ministers to make decisions and not question their decisions when they're dealing with corruption at the end of the day.
But you see, you're asking us to do the same thing. You're saying that the era is over where we didn't question, but right now let's not question. We're doing the same thing you're asking us to do. We're questioning the decisions of the ministers. But to me, the minister's decision is right. As you can see, there is corruption. But to me, what I've said, the minister is best to answer. What I can say to the minister, at least she stopped the thing bleeding, because there are so many other problems at NASA. Because even if he may be angry, but Zakawanda Zagubuda as a result of that. So let us allow us to run the course and get the evidence before you can hear some of the mama callers varikutofona chitotara kunasa kune zvakadai saka kana minister let's rakaita mistake apa asi chokwadi chakubuda then ichocho chokwadi chino justify decision yao. All right, saka ndo patinozoti chokwadi chinobuda wantavunza mvunzo honorable. So that's why we're questioning this, so that if she honestly can prove that she made the right decision, she will, because again she's answerable to the people of Zimbabwe. And the next layer of that, honorable, because we've been desperately trying to get the minister to come to our show or to come to any show here at Capital 100.4 FM, because the questions have been piling up. If you maybe can compel her to come and answer, to speak to these questions, we'd greatly appreciate it, because the people of Zimbabwe want answers. She works for the people of Zimbabwe, and we'd like to get a response from her.
No, what I'll do for you, since you've asked me as a member of parliament who represents people, I'll equally go into parliament question time and say, Honorable Minister, can you please respond to A, B, C, D? I'll ask the questions. I also represent you, by the way.
Wonderful. So I love being represented, and you can represent the listeners of Capital 100.4 FM. And the question we'd ask you to pose in Parliament is, Honourable Minister, why have you not responded to requests from the media for a statement and for an interview? But I've got a question for you, actually a message that came in from one of our listeners. The first one says, Anzi Villa was not there when NASA invested in Capital Bank. So at least these are some of the things that people are sending in. I've got another one here that says, good morning. Some of the parastatals need to be privatized. Government doesn't need to run companies in all industries. They must create conducive environment. Great job, Tenda. I like the fierce arguments in Parliament. That's a message coming in from Smanga. Smanga, thank you so much for that message as well. And this one is saying, Kudanzi, good morning. Ask Mr. Temba, what's his position with the Obert Mpofu and his refusal to answer their questions?
It's an absolute disgrace to the country where you have an appointee of the president not answering and accounting himself or herself to Parliament. I've never seen that before, and to me it puts a lot of pressure on the appointing authority, and that's the president. You know, the president appointed Dr. Mpofu to be minister, and there are three state pillars. There's Parliament, there's the judiciary, there's executive. They're all complementary of each other, but Parliament is responsible for oversight. So to me, to have a minister who comes before Parliament, even if you have issues with me, then you must state where I am conflicted at the end of the day and say, no, I cannot take questions from Honorable Mliswa because he did A, B, C, D. But we still give you a chance to say, can you state what it is that you and I feel we are conflicted in? You still don't say it. It is a shame for the country, and with the whole world watching that, it's very difficult for people to say Zimbabwe is open for business when ministers cannot account. It is important that the president takes note of that going into an election, that does not do him much good. And I must be honest with you, people are angry. 25% of the vote you can lose because people have suffered because of corruption. And what we're trying to do was to prefer to have an opportunity where the minister says the side of the story so that we bring this to closure. I like the fact that the police have come before us with their diamond concession. The army has equally done that, and Vice President Mohadi is also coming when he was Minister of Home Affairs. If all these ministers are coming before us, even Dr. Chombo is coming before us, even Chidakwa is coming before us, because they know that Parliament is critical in the aspect of oversight. So to me, you now allow people to now speculate where they now think, oh, are you protected by the president or not? We want to protect the president. In protecting the president, we must make sure that people around him do what they're expected to do from a constitutional point of view.
All right, then, Honorable Mliswa, but thank you so much for making the time to join us this morning. We have a ton of questions that are coming in, and hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to you, but I think a lot of them pertain to the minister, and hopefully she'll heed our call and come and join us here. But thank you so much for making the time this morning.
I thank you very much, and I want to support the minister for what she did, and the whole board must go.
Well then, strong statements there coming in from Member of Parliament, Honourable Temba Mliswa.